Hi everyone, Kendra McCourt with Remax 100. I thought I'd create a quick video to go over some of the forms that you will be presented with when we decide to sign a listing agreement. So the first one I wanted to show you today is the right to sell. This is the actual agreement between you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and myself and my company, Remax 100, to sell your property. As you can see, we have the main information, which will have your names, the broker information, and the property that's being sold. We would write that information in here. Majority of the properties that are in this area are going to be in fee simple. So that means that you have a deed entitled to the property. There are a few subject properties, mostly in Indian Head, that have ground rent, and that would be a separate discussion. The following paragraph 4 talks about when the listing will go active and when the listing agreement would expire. We have in paragraph 4 also the terms for terminating our brokerage agreement. And I ask that you give me 14 days. If I'm doing something that you are not happy with, or I'm not doing something that you need me to do, I ask that you give me 14 days written notice to try to fix it. If after that I'm not able to make the situation better, or we just feel that it's best that we both part ways, we will, and there will be no hard feelings. I'd rather you end an agreement with me on good terms rather than have an agreement and be held to it and hate me. The next paragraph is the listing price. This would be the price that's determined between us when we sit down to sign the listing agreement. Paragraph 6 is the showing instructions. I utilize a program called Showing Time, which gives you the ability to receive an email, a phone call, or a text message with the requested times that the agent is looking to show the property. I use Central Lock, which is an electronic lockbox. That means that only licensed agents in good standing will have access to it. I will also be able to monitor who opens the lockbox and when. I can also remotely lock the lockbox. So if somebody, if you're having a family event and you're like, I don't want any showings between Friday and Sunday, I can actually put that information into the showing time system as well as lock the lockbox so that way nobody can access it. You're out shopping and you forgot your keys, or your kids left to go to school and they forgot their keys, just drop me a quick message and I can also send you a code that is valid for 24 hours to be able to operate and open the lockbox yourself. Paragraph 7 talks to us about marketing your property on the MLS. The MLS is the multiple listing service that everything dumps into, and then that goes out to all the different websites. Paragraph 7 here mostly talks about what happens if we don't put the property on the MLS. If you did not want it to be listed on the computer, which we would have discussion about, but what that ends up doing is it restricts the amount of people that would have access to your property. The one part of this paragraph that I do want to point out is that there are certain websites that allow for comments to be placed on the listing. I always recommend that we do not authorize uneditable comments or reviews of the property. Things that people would put out there saying, oh, you don't want to buy this house, or oh, you've got to buy in this community because of this. Those can all cause issues for the home seller, so we just go ahead and say we're not authorizing it, because if somebody does, I can't take it down. It's not something I have access to. The next one is the automated estimate of the property value. The unfortunate part is that Zillow and Redfin use this, so if we don't agree to it, then our properties won't show up on their site. So we just go, okay, it is what it is, and we accept it. An interesting part of this agreement is our coming soon status. Coming soon allows me to put it into the local MLS, so that way we can generate interest in the property prior to it going live. This means that it just stays strictly within the MLS So only an agent can show that to a potential buyer. It will not go out on the Zillow or the Redfins or the Realtor.coms, things like that. It will strictly stay in-house, or online in the local MLS. That does allow for the ability for people to put it under their, hey, I need to put this under my list, I have to watch it. It also gives us, Mr. and Mrs. Seller and myself, the ability to get all of our advertising in order, so that way when the property is ready to go live, everything is there. If we do an open house, you will either authorize or not authorize me the ability to discuss why your house is better than the house down the street or 2 communities over. If you don't allow me to, that means that I have to not say, I can't talk up your property like I could with having the ability to do that. Of course, you allow us to release the information to the other brokers. That allows me to tell them about the property, send them photos, virtual tours. Most homes these days have some sort of home security system that records audio, whether it be a Ring doorbell or Vivint security or things like that. We do have to make you aware that in Maryland, it is unlawful to record record audio of private conversations without the consent. So if you do have one of these, I do put up signs everywhere letting everybody know that the property does have that, and to monitor their conversations so they don't let the seller, know private information without them agreeing to it. I have to abide by fair housing. The property is the property. It has specific requirements within that, 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, things like that. I can't discriminate who comes in and sees it and or who comes in and wants to buy it. Your responsibility is to make sure you maintain your insurance. Keep your insurance on the property until the deed is recorded. Once we go under contract, we want to make sure that all of the repairs that are done are duly licensed. If you have done any major repairs to the home, added an addition, closed in a porch, things like that, we need to make sure that we have receipts and or any sort of paperwork from the government, whether permits were pulled or things like that, that we can provide to the buyer. The broker's compensation, and that is how I get paid. Now that is 6% plus an admin fee of $4.25. The admin fee covers the ability to maintain electronic contracts for our signatures, as well as actual electronic copies of all of the documents that you've signed from beginning till end for 7 years. The 6% is split between myself and the buyer's agent. So 3% goes to RE/MAX and 3% would go to the buyer's agent. Out of that 3%, I do all of the advertising, all the photos, all the online, everything that is done to help sell your property, I handle in the beginning. So that just covers it on the back end. If I bring you a ready, willing, and able buyer that agrees to everything that you have written, and you have agreed to it, and then all of a sudden you decide you don't want to sell the property and you terminate our agreement, for 90 days past that termination, you would still owe me a commission because I brought to you that ready, willing, and able buyer, and you went behind our agreement and negotiated with the buyer itself. If we get to a point where the contract falls apart and there's all sorts of issues, if there's a deposit that you have access to by virtue of the buyer defaulting, we agree that 50% goes to you and 50% comes to me for my services that I have already rendered in terms of the photos and such. This is paragraph 15. Is the cooperation with the other buyer's agent. So this would be the agent that brings the buyer. Their broker would get 3%. We understand that anything that happens from the time the contract is fully accepted till when it goes to closing, those are what we call ministerial acts. This agreement allows me to work on your behalf, provide information to the title company, be available for buyer's agents, be available for inspectors. We understand that all deposits are held by the broker. However, in the state of Maryland, you can have title companies hold escrow deposits. Those deposits are good faith deposits that a buyer puts down. If that is the case, then we will enter into a whole separate agreement between the buyer and you stating how that deposit should be dispersed if the contract does not go to closing. A couple years ago, Maryland decided to change the law on smoke detectors. We are now required to make sure that the home is equipped with the 10-year sealed batteries. If they are hardwired, they need to be re-hardwired in. I know you can get an individual one for Lowe's for like $35. So if your smoke detectors have not been updated since 2018, we need to go ahead and get in there and double check them to make sure that they are updated and in compliance before we go to closing. If the property was built prior to 1978, we will have to sign paperwork that tells us whether or not the property has been lead certified. So basically, don't lick the walls is my common statement for that. Any renovations or repairs to the property involving lead-based paint have to be done according to EPA standards and guidelines. Paragraph 20 is a new one, or a newer one, that is very important. If you are in a newer home, a home built in the 2000s or newer, there is a possibility that you have deferred water and sewer assessments or front foot benefit fees. You usually get a bill once a year from some arbitrary company requesting that you pay $800, $1,000, whatever it may be, to this company, so that way you can be hooked up to the public water system. Usually these front foot benefits or deferred water are usually around 25 to 30 years. The hiccup with this is that if we don't provide the buyer the information prior to going to closing, if it's discovered after closing, you could be forced to pay the remainder of that assessment for the buyer. So if you have anything that you think might be about this, let me know, because we definitely want to get that information and get it over to a potential buyer. Paragraph 21 talks about whether or not I can disclose existing offers. Now, this does not give me the right to tell the buyer's agent what the offer I have in hand states. It does allow me to tell the buyer that we are presenting all offers tomorrow at 6 p.m., but I can't tell them what we have. I always recommend that we do disclose existing offers. Now, it is a double-edged sword, because there are times that a buyer will say, I really, really want this house. I know there's other offers. I need to bid up, need to raise my sales price. I need to change my conditions, or my they want to take out their home inspections, or any sorts of contingencies they have to help bolster their offer. The other drawback is that some buyers have already been burned once or twice, and they decide they don't want to play in the sandbox. So they're like, nope, don't even want to present an offer. It's a give or take. In the market that we're in, still currently in a seller's market, I might recommend that we go ahead and authorize it, because we might be able to get a better offer from that potential buyer. You understand that I have to present all offers in a timely manner. So if I receive an offer, even if it's a counter offer, I have to let you know, unless you tell me no, or don't want to know, and then we would write a letter for that. You understand that I can provide a home warranty if you so desire to offer that to a potential buyer. A property disclosure disclaimer is what I fondly refer to as the checky box paper. We go ahead and fill this out. This lets the buyer know of any issues or concerns that you might have about the property at the time that they write their offer. we make sure that they receive it prior to writing the offer, because if not, they have 5 days to cancel their contract based on what they have. The only time that you are exempt from having to fill out this is that if it's a lender selling it based on foreclosure, if it's a sheriff or tax sale, if it was court-appointed trustee, that if there was a deceased owner and it's being sold by the estate or trustee, if it's been, the real estate's been converted by the buyer, so if a buyer takes the property, that's single family home, and they are going to demolish it or use it for something else, then the seller would not have to sign that out. Or if it's just land, if it's raw land, then there's no information. If you have any violation notices on your property, whether it be for government or court actions or HOAs, if you had a permit and they put a violation notice, we have to let them know. Any conservation easements, whether they be agricultural, forest conservations, historical trust, we have to let the buyer know and give them copies of that trust at the time that they write their contract. Everybody understands that they need to get property insurance. If the property lies within a floodplain, you need to let me know if you carry flood insurance, because we need to let the buyer know of that. Number 28 is a really important one. If you're a non-resident seller, that means that you own property in the state of Maryland that you no longer reside in, you are subject to a tax of 8%. Now, you do have the option of requesting to have that waived, and under certain circumstances, the state does waive that charge. So you would need to certify that and send that in writing as soon as you receive an offer. The tax is based on what your actual net is, not the sales price or anything. So we take the sales price and all of the fees and taxes and all of that and come up with a net sale price. Then we deduct the 8% from that. So if your net proceeds is $1,000, then the 8% would be based off $1,000. If you don't reside in in the United States and you are a foreign investor, we do have to have the real property tax there. If the property currently has an FHA loan on the property, we are required to pay the loan in full. This paragraph talks about the legal construction of the contract. That is stating that everybody understands this is a legal binding document. If you don't understand it, seek legal or tax advice. Don't ask me. These are all the addendums and then some that might be attached to the listing agreement. So here is just the main listing agreement that we have. It is 9 pages. If you have any questions or concerns or comments about this agreement before we meet, please let me know. If not, I look forward to meeting you and having a successful sale of your property. Thank you.